Hi, I'm Jeff Stokes. Welcome to Jeff's Daily Dose of Encouragement. Today I want to encourage you to be careful not to cause offence. Now, what am I talking about here? Obviously, the gospel sometimes is an offence to some people, and when we're sharing it, people can be offended. If we're telling the truth and things like that about stuff, or just talking and people don't like it, today people get offended if you say there are only two genders and things like that. I'm not talking about stuff like that. There are things that, for instance, Paul talked about destroying people's consciences because you might eat food offered to idols or something like that. He was talking about those sorts of things that are maybe controversial, and one person's faith is different to another, and things like that. Not these other things that people make up today. So, for instance, in 1 Corinthians 10, Paul says in verse 31, "Whether therefore you eat or drink, or whatsoever you do, do all to the glory of God. Give no offence, neither to the Jews, nor to the Gentiles, nor to the church of God, even as I please all men in all things, not seeking my own profit, but the profit of many, that they may be saved." So, sometimes there are things that, I remember years ago, a friend of mine went to dinner, and he used to be a raving alcoholic, and he went to dinner one day, and one of the guests that he was at dinner with showed up with a bottle of wine, and my friend went a bit crook, and he says, "Oh, well, if you're going to do that, I'll bring a bottle of methylated spirits then," because that's what he used to drink. So that was an offence to him, because he had a real drinking problem, and then someone else shows up with alcohol. I'm talking about things like that, okay? And so we don't want to cause our brother to stumble and cause offence. And over in the book of Luke, in chapter 17, Jesus talks about this here. He says, "It is impossible but that offences will come. But woe unto him through whom they come. It were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his head, and he cast into the sea, than that he should offend one of these little ones." And so it's like doing things that are questionable or ungodly, or things that will make a person fall into sin and things like that, or the way we treat people that's not right in God's eyes. As I said, there are things that people get offended about, but they're actually good and right in God's sight. So I'm not talking about those. It's things that are questionable. And you really have to pray and ask God in each situation when people get offended. Some people, as I said, get offended just because you share the gospel, or because you share a fact that's not really controversial, but the world's made it controversial. And then there's other things like the alcohol situation I alluded to, that could really cause someone to stumble, and cause them even to go back to a habit that before they didn't, but they just overcome it or whatever, or the Lord will deliver them. So that's my encouragement for you today. Is, try not to cause offence. If we walk in love in everything, and not always be about our own self-interest, as Paul said, but looking out for the interest of others, that's really what our heart should be. It's not about some legalistic, belly button gazing thing where we're watching ourselves all the time. It's that getting full of the Spirit of Christ in such a way that we don't go doing those things. If you don't know the Lord Jesus Christ, if you confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For whosoever shall confess that Jesus is the Son of God, God dwells in him, and he in God. So God bless you. Have a great day.